Hello, this is WTF, What the Function. We are the Fab 5 ABA professionals in the Orlando area treating your children for some reason. You let us.
She does.
Hi.
Hi,
All
guys.
Hi.
All
Hey.
right. So this is the first podcast we've ever done on this.
Yay.
Are we all excited?
Actually, kind of, yeah.
I'm a little excited. I
very
feel like
excited.
it's going to be resourceful and we can have a reference link to send parents and send Bumble Boys when they ask what we're doing.
And
And
everybody can know. If we help one person, we did our job.
exactly.
True.
Mm-hmm.
So first discussion is, what is ABA? What is ABA? I'm on a lot of parenting forums and there's always questions. What is ABA? Should I send my child to ABA? I heard ABA is so bad. And it always turns into the worst debate where I am the devil and ABA is bad.
Really?
And that is not the case. That is not the case.
No.
What do you
I
guys think about ABA?
I think that it's difficult for people to like really get behind it because it is so specialized, it is so technical, and it is like a case by case basis. Like no two clients in an ABA facility are going to look or have the same programs.
That's
Like
true.
it's very, very specialized.
And also I think it's because it started like so negative. And now that we're trying to like reform it and make it better and make it more positive, it still has that negative taste in people's mouth. So they're like, that's bad. Even if it is good or there's progress being made, it's still, oh no, it's bad. It's negative. So we still have that
Absolutely.
dark cloud lingering, even though we are making progress in ABA world, you know?
Oh yeah. So does anybody know how ABA actually started?
Yeah, a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's
So
not.
ABA started in Miami, Florida at Sunland Hospital. Very fun stuff. There was no ethics board. There was no ethics board. And they didn't really consider the function of a behavior. It wasn't, they considered it irrelevant. They didn't care what the function was. All they needed to know was how to manipulate the consequence of a behavior to change behavior. And we know if you don't know what the function is and we're manipulating consequences to change behaviors, we're actually promoting other behaviors. It's not working. And like I said, there was no ethics board, and it was actually just called modification therapy. And nobody knew what they were doing. They literally had college students that would take like a weekend seminar in a hotel room somewhere, and they would go into these homes with these disabled people who were living there because their parents couldn't handle them. And they would modify the behaviors by implementing punishment consequences. There was no real positive consequences. There was nothing good really happening. We weren't working for like a reinforcer, and we weren't really working for, you know, anything that they would want. We were putting them in bathtubs if they kept peeing their pants, making them sit in pee pants if they kept peeing their pants. So, I mean, where these parents are getting this information from is completely valid.
Right. And
But
that's where it's always the battle.
exactly, it's completely valid. So you can't argue it. All
Nope.
you can tell them is, this is not what I'm doing. I'm not throwing your child in a bathtub. I'm not throwing your teenager in a bathtub. Your adult child is not going into a bathtub. I don't have a bathtub at this clinic. Like, we're working to change behaviors in a completely positive way, and only socially significant behaviors. Another argument they have is that we are changing their child, we're changing their personality. We want to conform them to be socially acceptable. And while some of that is slightly true, we want to change socially significant behaviors. I don't care if your kid's flapping his hands or singing ABCs while he's grocery shopping. Like, that's irrelevant to me.
And I think that also, to piggyback off of what you're saying, is also to make it more socially acceptable, make it more comfortable where people are not like, it's like,
Yes.
it's okay. What they're doing, what they're flapping, what they're saying, what they're humming, it's okay. And that's where ABA comes in, because we also work with not only, like Rebecca said too, the kids and clients, we work with parents as well. So it's like, they say it takes a village to raise a child. It does, because you need a whole team for it to actually be progressive and to actually see real results and see progress across the board.
Absolutely. We work with the occupational therapist, the physical therapist. We work with the speech
Physician.
therapist. We work with the developmental pediatrician, the neurologist. We work with everybody. It's a conducive
Right.
team
Mhm.
to promote socially acceptable behaviors and replacement behaviors that maybe are not so functional for them.
And not to make us look better by comparison, but the fact of the matter is that there is no therapy that was born from a completely clean and ethical place.
Absolutely.
Speech
It's
therapy has a
medical.
dark past. Physical therapy has a dark past. Therapy in general has a dark past.
Yes.
Medical in
Best
general has a dark past.
happened.
Yep.
Yes, everything that we have now, everything that we know now, is unfortunately the consequence of people figuring out what happens when you don't do the right thing. Because they didn't know it was the wrong thing. Like
And
speech
even-
There
therapy.
was no ethics board. It was just a free-for-all experimentation
And
group
true.
for
Yeah, and people
everything in medical
more
history.
likely to
And it doesn't make it right, but that's what happened.
and people are more likely to put out negative. Like, say you go out somewhere, just simple experience. You go out to eat, you buy something. You quick to talk about something negative on a comment or a review. When it comes to something positive, for some reason it's always a little bit more to write something positive or to put that out there. But something negative, 2 seconds, I'm gonna run with it. So that's just something minor like that. So just imagine what we're doing on a more bigger scale. It's even more negative over the positive, and like you said, it's always we have the most valid area, so it's hard to constantly battle because it's fact and they can look it
Right.
up and figure it out, and it's like, well, it's there, and that's the true beginning of ABA.
It is
And
fact, but just to mention, it is fact that we started in an awful place. We did awful things, and what you're saying is true. Your concerns are valid.
Right.
But now, with the appointation of an ethics board and with, ABA in general coming from such a dark past, we are super strict on what we can and cannot do because we're trying to change the view on it because we get so much backlash. They're not playing with us.
Yeah.
no.
But we also have become, a couple years ago, what was it? Medicaid in Florida required all Medicaid to cover 40 hours of ABA a week for children because we are the most scientifically proven intervention for, quality of life long term.
That is true. So like when something's backing you up, it kind of makes it a little easier. But like we said, we're always going to have to battle that negative because that's all people read and that's what they stick with, and that's it.
And in my personal opinion, I'm just going to say real quick that there are a lot of people who went through older, less supportive forms of ABA therapy across like America. These people, like, they're adults now, like this is our lifetime. And there's going to be backlash for a very long time. It's going to take a very long time for us to build up trust in the autistic community again. Because although there are some autistic people who are supportive of this and see some benefit in it, there are survivors of abusive ABA practices, and they're making themselves heard, and people are kind of like taking little notes from them and applying to it to current ABA as if we're doing this stuff now. It's going to take some time to build that trust
and facts and evidence and like case by case. It's going to take a whole lot for them to finally be like, okay, maybe it's not bad. It's going to take a whole lot for it to be more positive instead of negative, because you hear about it all the time on the news. If you read the articles, they talk about ABA more often than you think, and it's always something negative. They don't ever talk about how we made progress with a client did this and now they do that. They don't talk about that stuff. It's only shined on the negativity part.
True.
And you just reminded me that there was like this recent like YouTube drama where this woman who is like an influencer who has like 5 kids, she gave away her adoptive son she adopted him from China. He had autism. He was like a level 3, very severe symptoms that he needed help with. And this video where they were talking about what she did, someone picked up on that she was using ABA therapy with him. And they were like, well, you could tell she was abusive because she put him through ABA. I mean, there was more than just the ABA part. It was also the fact that she took him from China and didn't have any idea how to care for a child with special needs.
Right.
Different.
Yeah. And also, do you guys want to touch on the different levels? I know she mentioned level 3. That might confuse some people.
Oh yeah.
I think the abusive part, sometimes ABA, it's hard to see that, especially like in the home and the parents, they're child is tantruming, and you know you have to go through the extinction burst, and it's really hard, you know. So it's to the regular outside parent, I could see where it would look abusive, you know, or that we're hurting them or something. But it's just like physical therapy, like you said, you know, when the physical therapist comes in, they used to call them physical terrorists. So
Yep, at the
because-
speech clinic, speech and OT clinic. Yep.
Mhm.
yeah, it's just like starting a workout. It hurts at first. It's really hard. You're sore. You got to keep going and going and going. You got to be, you can't miss any sessions. And then within a couple weeks, you see results,
Mhm.
positive results.
Yes.
So,
And
Yeah,
I
we
think a
can
big
go-
part of that, sorry. Oh, I think a
no,
big
no,
part of
that's
that
okay, go on.
is that a lot of people who are supportive of these other types of therapies, they're verbal. They are able to
Mhm.
communicate. The
No,
autistic
yeah.
child who was nonverbal, who was like 3 years old, just figuring out how to use a PEX board, you know, taking off a Velcro strip and saying, I want, you know, fruit strips. Like they can't tell you like, okay, this hurts, but I'm getting better at holding my cup, or I don't really like speech therapy, but I'm getting better at telling you what I want. They can't
Mhm.
communicate with people. And so it's up to the adults around them to say what's good for them or not. And that's it's a lot of responsibility on
Yeah,
everybody.
especially when, for the record, I don't have any children. However,
Me neither.
I know that
do.
it takes, again,
It
I
doesn't,
know
I
that
don't
it
think it matters.
takes like a lot
I have
to,
one.
you know, to help them. And then even like if you have a pet, anything that you're ill-equipped to do is going to be even more of a struggle, you know? So that definitely plays a role, not just the ABA.
Well, on
Yeah,
that,
it's hard for
on that
parents to
note,
do ABA.
I want to say that personally, I had parents that have been so grateful because
Mhm.
of they've seen the changes, they've seen the progress, and before they couldn't even go to the movie theaters, now they can. Or they couldn't go to Disney, and now they can't. I mean, I think that nowadays everyone is realizing on, listen, ABA is not that bad. It's not what it used to be.
Yes, I think that, I mean, so I do have 2 children for everybody watching who doesn't know me, and both of my kids are autistic. And I had no idea what ABA was until I had started school for speech therapy. I mean, my children didn't talk, and I thought I needed speech therapy because that makes the most sense. No, I needed ABA therapy. I had no idea what it was. And I was one of those parents that when I got the recommendation, went on Google, what is ABA therapy? Went to the forums, what is this? And I got the backlash of, this is awful. You don't want to do this to your children. And I had to look at it through, you know, a more professional scope and be like, is this true? Yes, I see all of these horror stories. Yes, I see that these are facts, but I'm also reading these parent stories about how their kid is now talking and how their kid is now potty trained and how their kid now sleeps through the night and how their kid, you know, couldn't eat anything. He was living on Pediasure because he wasn't eating food and now he's eating full meals.
Or now they can wait.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can wait, like everything.
Everything,
And
yeah.
so I did put my kids in speech therapy, and I was one of those parents that went in kind of like, I don't really know what you're going to do with my kid because I don't know what ABA is, and online doesn't have very much stuff on it. It's not, you know, there's not a lot of positive notes on here. And I was one of those parents that were like, holy shit, my kid just put his dish in the dishwasher. My kid, we're walking through a grocery store and he's not screaming at me and throwing cans around. Like,
Mhm.
there's a significant change. And I see that with parents, like what Iris was saying, like we've worked in the same clinic for years, and we've had multiple parents come in with kind of like a negative attitude and kind of like a negative approach, very hesitant, timid, like, okay, we're going to try this because the doctor says we have to, but I
I
mean,
don't really want to.
exactly. And then a month later, when their kid is like walking in by himself, putting his bag up, speaking, eating, you know, no longer in a diaper, they're like,
Yeah.
holy shit, okay, you might know something after all. Here you go,
Right.
take my kid back. Like,
And I think
so
now
I mean,
the pandemic definitely shined a light on that.
Oh yeah.
You know, pandemic is like it's awful, a lot going on, it's ruined a lot of things, but for the ABA world, it's helped out because now they see like, ooh, we gotta get you back in there. You know, we gotta make sure you have therapy. We gotta get you back to your therapist and you have your sessions, because when you're home with them, you really see the progress that's being made, you know, with the therapist.
Absolutely.
So I definitely get it.
Absolutely. So so I get the question a lot. How would you describe ABA? Like, what do you do? What is ABA?
I think mine is mainly just, I'm real big on the functional communication. You know, a lot of these
Mhm.
behaviors, a lot of my kids, they can't express what they want and what they need. So that's my big thing. Although sometimes I have seen that where they won't express it just so that
Yeah.
they can engage in bad behavior for attention seeking purposes or escape purposes or whatever. So I think it's basically teaching the kids, hey, I need a break, or hey, this is too hard for me, or hey, I need some help, or I'm hungry. I don't know how to say I'm hungry and I can't do math right now. I mean, there's so many different variables with each child, you know.
Yeah, I tend to focus a lot
So,
on communication too. And I think that's because Jessica and I both came from, you know, a speech background. Our first degrees were in speech therapy. So we did speech therapy before we kind of switched into behavior. And I do see a lot. I was super surprised because I have an 8-year-old now who this year at 8 years old started talking at 8.
Which is
In
huge.
speech therapy, in speech, you learn that language after 5 isn't really a thing. You don't get language after 5. Both of my kids started language after 5. And I had never seen kind of like a communication push after 5 in speech therapy, but that's a huge thing we focus on in ABA. We teach communication at all ages and it works. Like, and I think that's one of the main reasons that I was like, well, peace out speech, I'm going over to ABA. Like, I think that I think you're lying to me.
Well, I think with speech, that's what they're taught. The speech therapists are taught, you know.
Oh, it is, because I was taught in school, I'm sure you were taught in school, that language at 5 is the language you're going to have. After 5, you teach a communication device, and that's that. But like I said, Avery didn't start talking till he was 6, and he talks nonstop.
Yes.
Liam is starting to talk this year. I mean, Avery will cuss you out. Like, it's
I will.
awful, but
they can always say those words perfectly.
exactly. Lauren knows because Lauren was my kid's therapist before.
Yes.
She knows.
I know him firsthand, and Avery will express himself. And I think that's where you guys came from, a speech therapy, to talk about ABA for us. ABA for me is not only coming from the communication side, but coming from the mental and feeling side. Because I have a degree in psychology. So my thing where I lead in my ABA world is how you feel and mental health and your feelings. So when I got with Avery, it was very something that we clicked right away, because Avery's expressive. Okay,
Avery's super emotional.
Tell you whether he's upset, he's happy, he wants hugs, he want to watch TV. He tells you everything. So when I met Avery over 2 years ago, we clicked right away because he let me lead with what I wanted to lead with which is your feelings and your mental health and how you feel, and then putting that into ABA and running his programs and so on.
And
so,
it's great.
Avery is very expressive, honey. He will let you know.
Yeah.
Okay. And you might not want to hear it, but you will know.
You will know. And I think that's great too, because one of the issues a lot of kids have with ABA is they can't express emotions. They don't identify emotions. And then even if they do identify emotions and they understand them, a lot of them don't have the communication to be able to say, I don't really want to do this right now, and y'all are pissing me off, so I'm about to tantrum. I mean, if my boss is over my head telling me, do this, do this, do this, do this, I'm gonna get angry too.
Right. And the capacity to say, what is this feeling? You know what I mean? What is this feeling? So it's like, okay, they don't know, they know what they feel something, but they can't put words to it, either because they don't know how or because they're nonverbal. It's multiple things. So that's why I like leading with feelings. To let these kids know, like, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to feel how you feel. And that's what I'm here to help you work through it, and different ways to cope with it. And to get through what you gotta get through. You have to get through the day, friend. You gotta get through the day.
one of like the BCBAs in my life that really impacted how I approach ABA. And these words, I like when I used to like train people as like a mentor, I used to do this all the time for people who were just getting in the field. I would say the ultimate goal of every RBT or every BCBA is to get the child to the least restrictive environment. And what that means, ABA's purpose is to push this kid and build them up and get them out of an ABA center.
Mhm.
Like no
Absolutely.
one's supposed to be an ABA for the rest of their lives. We're gonna build those skills. You're gonna be toilet trained. You're gonna be able to brush your teeth. You're gonna be able to say no. Well, the first
Right.
one's usually no. You're gonna be able to say, yeah, I want that burger with cheese. Like
Or
we're
to your
gonna get you to
food,
the
pick your
point where
clothes.
you can
Yeah.
live your own life to the best of your ability.
And
Mhm.
even that, those are very basic
Yeah.
skills that we teach, but we don't teach that. We teach independent living skills. We'll go to work
Yeah.
with you. We'll teach you how to
Yeah.
do a job. We'll teach you
Mhm.
how to
Interview.
maintain your house, how to make your
Mhm.
bed, how to do laundry, how to cook a meal. Our ultimate goal is always to give you the most like satisfying quality of life, make you as independent as you can possibly be. And to kind of modify those maladaptive behaviors so you can function socially and you're able to do this independently or as independently as you can. So
And
I
to
mean, we
piggyback
don't
off
work
of
with
that, what Corey
babies.
and Rebecca are saying, yeah, and people don't realize like you expect everything, a lot of expectations that parents have or even other therapists have, it's supposed to all happen. No, it wasn't.
Mhm.
Rome wasn't built in one day. It takes time. And what I
Well,
always tell my parents and any kind of clinicians I'm working with or anybody that's,
mhm.
getting frustrated or not okay with the progress, any step in the right direction is progress. It could be a
Mhm.
little step, it could
Mhm.
be a big step, it could be a huge step. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter. If you're going in that right direction where we're all on the same team and everybody's going to be the best, make that person be the best human they could be, that's progress.
Yep.
We've done our job. We've done
Well,
our
yeah,
thing.
yeah, and I think that parents do expect like a quick turnover,
Yeah.
especially,
Like fix my
you
kid.
know,
Mhm.
yeah,
Listen, you've
like
been
within
trying
a
to fix
month.
your kid
Okay,
for 5 years. You gave me a day. Chill.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
gonna need
I
at
tell
least
Right.
Yo,
2.
I'm gonna need you to chill out.
what I tell people is I don't work in a perfect baby factory. I'm not going to push a child through a meat grinder and make them a perfect sausage. Like that's not what's going to happen. I'm
Yeah.
going to teach your autistic kid how they can get through a neurotypical world.
Mhm.
That's what I'm going to do.
And that's
Because
also other side of
I'm
that.
not gonna extract the autism from them. They're
Right.
always gonna be autistic, but I can teach them how to raise their hand and say, I need to go to the bathroom in some capacity.
Mhm. Because when they get out there, they're not gonna do that to them. They're
Yeah.
not gonna sit
Right.
there and be like, oh, wait, let me put you over here and give you extra attention. No, they're gonna
We
Right.
all
line
look
up
like
with the rest
this.
of them.
No one has a
Yep.
stamp on their forehead saying what they
Mhm.
are.
And I
Exactly.
think that is kind of one of the things that kind of puts me off about ABA therapy. And it's one of those things that we're moving away from still,
Mhm.
is that, Cooper Bible. Cooper is our Bible. But
Mhm.
Cooper is a textbook that kind of wants to train a perfect child. Like, this is what a
Mhm.
perfect child looks like. It will do this, 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 and this with this behavior, with this consequence, with this antecedent, and this is how you get there. That is not true, because I can tell you that I was a typical child, and that's bullshit, because
Mhm.
I was not a perfect child and I
No
did not have
kid is.
autism.
No
I
one
mean,
is.
exactly. What are you
I
talking
was.
about?
Wild child, okay?
Like,
My family calls me wild child.
I had a
for-
messy room. I spilled my drinks all over the place. I was super picky with what I was eating. I mean, I got in trouble at school all the time for
Mhm.
singing at my desk. I was like 5, and I didn't want to do that work either. And,
Yeah.
my brother kind of threw a couple tables, and he wasn't in ABA therapy. They're trying to design
This
these
perfect.
perfect response children, and
Mhm.
that is not a thing. So,
No.
like, a lot of parents, that's one of their arguments. Like, you're
Yeah, they
trying
come in
to
with that.
program my autistic child to be a perfect, typical child. And yes, we have a textbook that tells us how we should program your child to be a perfect, typical child. But that's not what we're doing. I
No.
mean, one of my biggest arguments at a previous clinic I worked in was stimming. I mean, we all know what stimming is. It's flapping our hands. It's saying random things repeatedly.
Humming.
It's shaking your foot. It's any of these behaviors that aren't really socially significant, but they're not socially appropriate. And the textbook will tell you, that's not an appropriate behavior, so you need to correct it. And the way that a lot of BCBAs used to correct that was to put those behaviors on extinction. I have an autistic kid who flaps his hands through the grocery store and he says, "Oh my gosh, oh my goodness, oh my gosh, oh my goodness." And, he shakes his foot and it's not a significant behavior to me. So he had a BCBA who was trying to put that behavior on extinction. And I literally had to go into the clinic and go battle it out because I'm not signing this. This is not socially appropriate, but it's not harming him. It's not harming anybody else.
Exactly.
And the thing is, when you do something like that, that's how he is coping. That's a
Expressing.
self-soothing skill.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I shake my foot when I'm sitting at my desk. I tap my fingers at my desk. And when you put something like that on extinction, you're actually just promoting other behaviors to occur.
Yep.
So you really have to judge, like, okay, the textbook says this. This is old science. I mean, not as old as speech therapy, but 1970s. What are we
Right.
really going to use right now? What have we learned? And how can we modify this to be appropriate for today? I mean, I refuse to put STEMs on extinction. Some BCBAs,
Yeah, I don't put any of that on
yes, they
extinction.
do. I refuse.
And to pick like short story time, like I once worked for a center where blocking a child's flapping hands was a real program, and I thought no one was running it until I saw someone that I respected training a new hire. Like, okay, so he's flapping his hands, we just redirect his hands down so he's doing a task. And I go, hold on, what are you doing? And she goes, well, this is a behavior that's non-functional. Hold up. First of all, it ain't hurting nobody. It ain't hurting him. It ain't hurting none of the furniture. It's not making him like not pay attention to what he's doing. He flaps his hands when he's eating a snack he likes and when he's looking at elephants. And he's like 3. You don't know what he's going to be like when he's 14. He could learn to stim when he's only in his room. He could learn to stim some other way that doesn't look as like obvious, or maybe he'll stim like that for the rest of his life.
But it
you know
doesn't even
what?
matter.
It don't matter.
Doesn't matter.
So I had to go to my center
yeah.
director. I had to go to my center director and I said, okay, I haven't told you this, but first of all, I'm autistic. Second of all, I hand flap. Third of all, I'm not doing that program. And she said, oh, we'll talk to her, the BCB on that case, and we'll take it out. And I was like, okay, good. Because I'm not having this conversation a second time with y'all. Oh, hell no. Oh, sorry, curse.
Yeah, I think
That could be
if
between
you
another
just like
graphic
scratching somebody or something, then that would be
Yeah,
appropriate.
I mean,
you
it
know?
has to be
If he's coming
socially
at you-
significant. Like if you're hurting yourself
That's a whole
or
different
you're
story.
hurting
Right.
somebody else,
Yeah.
or your stimming is making it so you're unable to, learn in a school setting, which I mean, we want to get you out there to a school setting. We want to get you as mainstreamed as possible. Then we might not necessarily put something on extinction, but we
Right.
might,
Or give
kind
them
of
time, like, they can do the stimming, like after they do the
modify that
work.
behavior.
Mhm.
This is where you can do it. This is when you can do it. And then if
Right.
that's not even appropriate, alternative behaviors. Give them something else. We're implementing an
something for
alternative
another-
behavior.
Another topic that we can definitely, go into stemming, because stemming is another big one.
And yeah, so I mean, that's a big one.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's one thing. Another thing that we do. How else would you describe what we do? I mean, I feel like we do a little bit of everything.
Everything.
Absolutely
Everything.
everything.
The OT, the speech, the
Yep.
even
Exactly.
the physical
Like
therapy,
we do the
walking.
OT. Exactly.
Yeah.
We do the speech. We do parent
Mhm.
training. I mean,
Parent training. Yep.
I feel like we do a little bit of everything. And I feel like parents
Absolutely.
don't really understand that because I mean, you're not sitting there saying, should I send my kid to speech therapy? Well, he can't talk, so you absolutely should. Or should I send my
Right.
kid to OT? Well, he has really low muscle tone, so I probably should. I mean, should I send my kid to ABA? No, it's bad.
Yeah. All the time.
Well, like,
Absolutely.
yeah, it is hard to see. That's the hardest one. I think the ABA is the hardest to see,
Mhm.
Because
It's
it's a
hard, you
long
see-
term
Yeah,
thing.
and you
Like,
see kids struggling very, very, like with speech, it's either yes or no, they say it. Did you say your R? No. Okay. We'll try again 3 more times. When your child is tantruming and throwing themselves down and vomiting and getting so upset they pee their pants, that's hard to see in a
Yeah.
home, That's hard. But until you get them for their tantrums to be shorter and shorter and shorter,
less intense.
fewer
Yeah.
and fewer and fewer,
And I think one
that's
of the most
progress.
I think one of the most difficult points coming from a parent perspective is they don't understand, and I was one, we don't understand or didn't understand that a behavior that you're going in there to try to fix is going to get worse before it gets
Right.
better.
Right.
It
right.
gets
I always
worse.
tell my parents that.
So when I'm
always
putting
tell
my
them that.
kids in therapy because, you know, my 3-year-old has these awful tantrums where he's like biting himself to the point where he's bleeding and throwing furniture and inconsolable. And I see, okay, well, now instead of biting himself twice, he's bit himself 16 times and he's broke a chair. What are you doing? Because this is not what I signed up
Right.
for. This is not what
Mhm.
is supposed to be happening. Therapy is supposed to be making this better. But they don't understand the extinction burst. And it's kind of like, I think the way that I always remembered extinction burst was one of my professors explained it to me like a vending machine. You put your money in a vending machine and you hit A3 to get your Cheez-Its and they get stuck and they don't come down. So you might smack the vending machine and it doesn't come down. So you smack it again and it doesn't
Not
come
plenty
down.
of times, honey, especially when
And
it gets
eventually
stuck.
you're like smacking the shit out of this vending machine and you're like, fine, fuck it, I give up because this is not working.
Right.
And I've exerted so much energy that is not worth it. At some point, what you're exerting is not worth the reinforcement of the Cheez-Its. So you give up, you stop. And I mean, to get to that point, you're in a full-on tantrum
Mhm.
at a vending machine.
Mhm. But you know that with the extinction, that might not be the last extinction. You know, you could see that again.
Because it will
That's another
resurface. We
thing.
also have
Yep,
resurfacing
it always
behaviors.
comes back.
Yeah. That
And
you know,
you know,
everything will be good for like a month, and then all of a sudden there's
Mhm.
another tantrum, and he wants his Cheez-Its.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, another problem with that a lot of people don't understand is that when you put that behavior on extinction, you know, he's kicking the machine because he doesn't know how to go somewhere and say, hey, I don't have these Cheez-Its, my money is stuck, my Cheez-Its are stuck.
They help you.
So
Mhm.
a lot of things that will happen is you might have a therapist who's, you know, fresh out, not very fantastic, and they're
Like we
putting
were.
a behavior on extinction, but they're not teaching them a functional alternative behavior to satisfy, you know, the function of the behavior in the first place. Like for that, it would be functional communication training. Hey, I need these Cheez-Its. They're stuck in this machine. And if we're not teaching them functional communication at the same time that we're teaching them, you know, to put this behavior in extinction, you're not allowed to kick the machine and scream, then we're not giving them another option. We're just telling them, you can't do this, but no way to get what they need.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so that happens a lot too, where parents are like, well, they are tantruming again and it's not working. Well, we didn't implement an alternative behavior procedure. Like we didn't teach them that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
I
to
think
kind of
that-
like rewind this, I think that people who are critical of ABA, when they hear things like a child who engages in like the behaviors that you talk about with your son, they'd be like, well, what were you doing to cause this tantrum?
Mhm.
Well,
Not giving him
sometimes,
his Cheez-Its.
Mhm.
yeah,
No,
He wasn't able to accept
just
that.
that.
Mhm.
not giving him
Sometimes
his
his
Cheez-Its
behavior,
because it's not time for Cheez-Its. He needs to eat this sandwich.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Eat that
sometimes
sandwich
the
first.
antecedent is something really, really minor, and it's because they have no threshold to deal with it or they have no communication. And that's what we do. Because like if your child is 30 years old and doing those same things over Cheez-Its and they do that
An
in
issue.
public,
That's a
that's
huge issue.
that's dangerous for him.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
why ABA happens when they're little. Or
Supposed
I
to
mean, we
happen.
do work with adults too
Mhm.
sometimes.
That's true. I
Yeah.
think we're gonna have like this with this platform. I think we're gonna have a lot to talk about, a lot of different topics that we all have, you know, personal experience from, and we're all currently in the field, which makes it even better. So we all have our own, you know, takes on things and vantage points. So I think it's gonna be really good, and we're gonna have a lot to say, not just, you know, about the first episode. It's gonna be good.
Yes. So the first
Yeah.
episode, guys, everybody that's watching, it was just a quick recap of what is ABA. And these are all like little ABA tidbits. ABA, you know, it's modifying socially significant behaviors. It's giving independence to people. It's teaching everything from communication to, we even work on math. I mean, we teach
Independent.
everything. I mean, personal information, safety skills, parent training. I occupational therapy. We work on muscles, like fine motor skills,
Yeah.
major motor skills. I mean, we literally do
They
everything in
really-
ABA.
Yep. And I think
And I
that's-
mean, I also feel like we're kind of counselors too, if we want to get
You
into
got that right.
it.
that is like
mean,
number one sometimes.
Right? These parents, yep, I get it. I get it.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. Yeah. That's a hard pill to swallow. And a lot of them, if they're not on board, we can't fix them all by
Mhm.
ourselves. You
Yeah,
have to
I
implement
totally agree with
what
the
we're
parent training.
training the parents. The parents are the hardest to train. I mean, the
Yeah.
kids are, that's
The
really
kids are
my
one thing.
struggle is,
And that's a
is
hard
having
pill
the
to swallow too. Like coming from a parent and they're going to tell me, oh, well, you're the reason your kid's screaming over
Right.
Cheez-Its. What?
right.
No, I'm not. I
Yeah.
didn't give him those
Mhm.
Cheez-Its. That you gave him Cheez-Its 5 days last week instead of lunch. Well, that he was screaming and he wouldn't eat his lunch and I didn't want him to starve. Like, I'm
Mhm.
creating these behaviors and
Yeah,
it's hard for them to come
double-edged
in and be
sword.
like, well, you did this, didn't you? Well, yes,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
It's a
did.
lot.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a good recap, Corey. That was good to let everybody know what we're doing.
Mhm.
Very good.
All right. Anything else anybody wants to say about what ABA is? Any weird questions you've been asked? Anything?
Ooh,
I
weird
think that's pretty much
questions.
it.
Yeah. I'll think of it later when I close out.
Oh,
think
man.
All
that's it.
future boys in the dating world, do not ask us what ABA is because we
Well,
will
they can
not
ask me. I'm married.
respond.
I'm good.
And don't
Well-
ask me to modify your behavior.
Right? That's a creepy one. I think I need a behavior
I'm on
therapist.
payroll
I
for
think you
that.
need something, but it's not me.
Oh, I like it. Yeah. Mhm.
I love it.
All right, guys. We'll see you
All
next week where we talk
Yes,
about
we'll see you
something
next
else
week.
fun, ABA related.
Yep.
Hope so.
All hearts and minds
Bye.
here.
Bye.
And boop.